Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. For the next 20 minutes, we'll be talking about the space, more precisely about the trends in space industry and how the new space paradigm is changing the scene for the established players, but also for startups, newcomers, and innovators, and also investors. My name is Jakub Stelmachowski. I'm an expert of Polish Space Agency, and I have a pleasure of moderating this panel. I have three guests with me. Thank you very much for joining for this panel. First one, Grant Blaisdell, entrepreneur, innovator, co-founder of Copernic Space. Grant, can you tell us a few things about you and your company?
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, I have a long startup background, spent the past X amount of years in the blockchain industry and co-founded CoinFirm, among other ventures, which is a global leader in big data analytics for blockchain and crypto assets. And also have, I'm third generation in the space economy, so to say. So I've combined these two things to create Copernic Space, which is a platform that opens up the world to easy and secure acquisition of digital space assets, such as satellite data and other various inherently digital assets in the space economy, and also allows for accelerated and open financing of space projects. So really, kind of that buzzword of democratizing space.
Great. Thank you very much. Next up, we are having Tadeusz Kocman, Business Development Manager at Syderal, Polska. Would you like to tell us something about yourself and your company?
So again, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Yes, so I come from electrical engineering background, but since about 10 years, my career was linked with space industry. And now since about 3 years, I'm with Syderal Polska, which is a company in Gdańsk, Poland, developing space electronics, mostly for the institutional market of the European Space Agency, but also since 2 years, we're developing projects in the new space area. So I think this is also one of the reasons I was invited to join this conference. Thanks.
Thank you, Tadeusz. And we also have Mateusz Dyrda with us, head of the Robotics Association SKALP. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jakub, for this possibility to join the discussion. So my name is Mateusz Dyrda. I'm the president of Robotics Association. We are focusing on educational aspect of robotics, on the improvement of robotics, of promotion, the idea of using robots in both education and industry, and also due to the fact that our members are highly connected to the space industry in the European Space Agency, in the Jet Propulsion Lab. So we are also connected with the new space and space industry.
Great, thank you very much. So with that, I have a first question. Grant, what really new space means to you? Because your company, Copernic Space, is essentially the marketplace for digital space assets. Will you call it a new space company?
Yeah, and very much our strategy when it comes to user acquisition especially from the seller or the entity that's financing end, are predominantly going to be what are defined as new space entities. So more of these startup-like structures that are more nimble, flexible, and adaptable to kind of changing environments, and generally what we're going to see, this digitization and the future space economy is going to look like. So yeah, we count ourselves in that. To me personally, I think new space is probably a too broad of a definition, the way that it's being thrown around today, where the way it's kind of being thrown around today is that you could say that any entity that's done anything new, even NASA, like NASA came up with something new, well, that could count as new space. So I don't view it that way. I view it in a little bit more strict way of entities that are bringing especially new sorts of models on top of the space industry that helps transition it also into the space economy, which I segment those two things. So like we have a partner and a use case on our platform called Exodus Orbitals. And for example, to kind of dumb it down, it's like satellite ride sharing. So instead of, having to deal with these satellite companies to get what you need, you could just rent out the satellite yourself, program what you need and get it. So that's new space to me. Shooting up the same rocket over and over again with one adaptation to me isn't much of new space.
I see what you mean. Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. And actually, Tadeusz, with that, you can perhaps say a bit more, because at Syderal Poland, you are doing both things, right? So the traditional space projects for the high reliable projects, but also you're targeting new space as well, right?
Yes. So let me start with a thought that I had when preparing for this discussion with you, that actually space is hard. And new space is also hard. A couple of, let's say, conditions that I would put to the new space market is about entrepreneurship, then new business models, like mentioned by Grant just a second ago, and then also lowering costs, which is also somehow connected, and then privatization of space. So I would say that out of those four criteria, the new space projects that we run would be about lowering costs. And then I would say it's also a little bit of progressive space projects. So we try to take on the endeavor, for example, of building a controller for a quantum communication photon source, which is something that I think no one else in Poland has done before us. Mm-hmm. And only several research groups around Europe have embarked on this mission. So with that, I would say we're not entirely new space in Grant's definition. I would just call it progressive space with some experience in heritage space economy.
Mm-hmm. It's a great read to see a crossover of these two disciplines, and I really like the term progressive space. Mateusz, about your perspective about the AI in space, do you think that AI in space also, first, is a new space trend, and second, is really a trend in space itself, and how it can help lower the costs, as we have just heard, as the new space is also a lower driven costs approach?
Well, I think first of all, maybe not just the AI in the space industry, but you need to have big computational resources to use artificial intelligence. So big computational resources comes with the newest computers, newest processors, and this is something that is lacking in the space industry, especially in the deep space missions. For example, the Perseverance rover is the main computer of Perseverance rover is based on the architecture from 80s, from 90s. So well, this is a big problem for to use the artificial intelligence in space, but it could be very beneficial. So, for example, the artificial intelligence is the machine learning algorithms works best with the processing of sounds and processing of pictures. So maybe the sound is not a great example in space, but the pictures are we use satellites for making pictures, a lot of pictures, huge pictures. So if satellite take this image, it have to be sent back to Earth. So if we are, for example, looking for pictures of the Earth, we want to have them without the clouds. Right now, all the clouds are sending, all the pictures with clouds or without are sending back to Earth. And this is this needs a radio link. Radio link, the communications sometimes are not so powerful as we used to with the modern internet, with the satellites. So the possibility to analyze automatically these images on the satellites and send only the valid data could be very beneficial to space industry, to operators of the satellites. And yeah, I think this is a part of new space trend.
Great. Thank you very much. And Grant, because you also want to distribute the data from the satellites to the broader audience, right? Do you think that this trend, this approach of using the AI in your business will also help? Or do you think some of the trends are more important for you personally?
Well, what he said there that was interesting to me was to handle the capability for analysis, let's say at the root of data generation, as opposed to inefficiently and ineffectively dumping down the full load. So that, which actually kind of relates to, you know, the extension of the model I was talking about around this, you know, this renting out, ride sharing, fractional ownership of space resources such as satellites, right? Which is really what we're talking about, that will allow, along with software kind of kits attached to it, that will allow you to program what you want on top of it. That's very near future stuff, to be honest, you know, and we're working with projects that to most people sound very futuristic, and to me, you know, sometimes still do, but in reality are a couple years away. And what was just described, you know, technically could be a capability today. It's just a really, once you get into the space industry, you know, there's a last statement was started with the space is hard. It's like, space doesn't have to be hard. It's unnecessarily made hard and bureaucratic, right? So one of our things is to use technology and alternative business approaches and models to, you know, instead of having this kind of segmented element, to make it under one roof, to where discovery, engagement, acquisition, and access to all these things is under one roof, and you can manage and transact all in one place, as opposed to this segmented approach. So that if somebody wanted to get one image, they can do it at the same place to where they could rent out a satellite, right? And hold those assets all in the same place and access to them in the same place. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a specialist in AI. I have, you know, co-founded a company that uses machine learning heavily and analytics, but what he described to me is, you know, is near future that should be done. It's just a matter of who wants to do it. And the incumbents, you know, as long as the governments control majority of contracts and revenue, the big players, incumbents, don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's why, once again, our focus is on the hundreds of startups, SMEs that are in the space or entering the space that will really push the change, just like happened in any digital or P2P revolution in any industry.
Sure. Okay, so we are talking about the democratization, the ride sharing, the lowering of costs. So Tadeusz, what is really your perspective on this lowering of the costs for the final user in terms of costs? Will you also be targeting this particular task, just to lower the cost for the end user? That's the first part of the question. And second part, what are the trends that you will be personally following in the next couple of years in space industry?
Mm-hmm. So let me start by defending a little bit the claim that space is hard. I think space is hard in terms of technology. It doesn't have to be hard in terms of how you run your business. So here I would agree with Grant.
Yeah, that wasn't a counter to you in any way, by the way.
No worries. And then Jakub, so coming to your question about costs, so that's commercial off-the-shelf components of electronics. Of course, we apply some of those in one of our projects. That's Triton X, which is a new satellite platform. And in this project, we're actually responsible for building the onboard computer and processing unit. So lowering the costs is on one side, but then this is a very delicate system level trade-off between lowering the costs and actually still guaranteeing high enough reliability that can be accepted by the customer. So you run into trade-offs on some components which you want to still have in highest level quality, and some that you can easily replace with cheaper component of COTS type. And additionally to that, you would also apply some of the error correction schemes And with that, and with all the experience gathered in those areas, you should be capable of developing such a, I would say, new space product. So regarding the second part of your question, which relates to space trends that we will follow, actually, the one that we are following most closely is about quantum communication, which is about providing secure quantum key that is transmitted via satellites to the end users back on ground who want to have their communication securely encrypted. And this is about countering the threat of quantum computers, which are predicted to be capable of solving the current encryption methods in 5, 10, maybe 15 years. No one really knows when that is going to be.
Yeah. The security aspect is also very interesting indeed in terms of how this GovSatcom communication will really be developing in the future. Perhaps coming back to the next trend, so robotics and debris removal, as we are seeing more and more clean space initiatives coming up to us recently. Mateusz, do you think that perhaps robotics can be also a next trend in the space industry?
Yes, I'm sure of it. I hope it will be the next trend, because I think there is many ways we can perceive the robotics in space. First is use of robots in space, and as you said, the clean space. We have this trend of huge constellation, mega constellation, giga constellation. The more we put onto the orbit, the more we have to think about that this is some kind of resource that is not unlimited. The low Earth orbit especially is a resource that we have to manage. We have to keep in mind that, well, if we want to think of how to clean it, how to keep it safe, well, we can get ourselves back a few decades back with event that could potentially render the orbits inaccessible for human. So I think this is a huge part. The robotics could take a huge part in it, but also I think that the robots back on Earth can really benefit from the new space initiative, from the communication, as Tadeusz said, from the new ways of communication, fast ways of communication. Right now we are seeing the 5G, the telecommunication revolution, and this is a huge thing for robotics because, well, many people like consumer are thinking, well, with the 4G I can have a full HD stream on my YouTube video, so why do I need 5G? Well, the simplest answer is latency, and for robotics this is a huge leap because well, for example, the self-driving cars, self-driving trucks won't be very soon. Probably we have to wait a little bit, but these kind of convoys that are, for example, the operator back in the operational center steers the truck, steers the convoy of semi-autonomous trucks. Well, this is happening. This is going to be in the near future, a few years, but you have to have extremely well established and extremely fast communication. 5G is working in the urban area, sure, fine. But what about the suburbs? So what about the rural areas? I think the new ways of communicating using the satellite communications, such constellation as a Starlink, it would play a huge role in robotics, in autonomous ships, autonomous vehicles, but also autonomous drones. And also, this is something we are currently working on. So the high altitude drones that could be using such a communication via the satellite.
Yeah, that's really a very interesting perspective. We will see what comes next. Thank you very much, Mateusz. And we have just one last minute, and I wanted to ask Grant and Tadeusz, just for you, very quickly, one investment trend connected to space industry that for you perhaps will be the new hot topic in the next 10 years, for example. What would that be? Perhaps Grant will start with you.
Yeah, the next investment trend around space is totally looking differently at investment in space. That's going to be the big investment trend. As of right now, pretty much all the funding comes out of government contract grants, etc., mixed with a few VCs that are interested in big ticket, mainly upstream applications. And then you have some scattered angels and VCs that are lightly investing in the space. The government is not going to, I believe governments are going to cut a lot of their funding towards this stuff. We see obviously that been happening with NASA over the past few years. I don't think these budgets are that sustainable. I also think it's bad for the progress of the space industry itself, as it allows for no progress to be made. And, you know, as someone who's been in, let's say, the alternative finance space as well for quite a few years, you know, I've personally taken part in token sales that garnered millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars from the general public. And there's nothing more ubiquitously loved and has mass potential for investment from the public than the space industry and eventual space economy. And, you know, there's stories of in the 60s and 70s when the US space program was really, you know, churning and really pumping itself out there, that the American public would just mail in envelopes with cash to NASA. They wouldn't know what to do with it, but the American public was doing that. And that shows, you know, just like people wearing NASA shirts on the street, that there's a massive thirst for the public to be able to get involved and own their little next piece of space, because space is going to be one of the largest new wealth generators in the history of mankind, as long as the people are given an opportunity to do so. And as of the way it is right now, it's going to be a fun little game for billionaires, right? And we want to help transition that and allow someone to own a piece of a satellite, even if it's 1/1000th of one.
That's a great perspective, really. Bringing democratization of space, I think, can really be a great new trend. Thank you very much, Grant. And just one idea from Tadeusz, we have just time for just one last idea. So
yes,
I give the floor to you.
Thanks you. So I think my answer would be a little bit different because I have a different background than Grant. I would say that in the more institutional space market, especially in Europe, the European Space Agency will have to somehow compete with the newly established European Union Space Programs Agency. And then we will also be looking at even higher militarization and weaponization of space. The fact that NATO recently established a NATO Space Force is showing that this will be getting increasingly important and will also drive investment from the defense market. And we'll have to see whether that's at which level this will be, also in comparison with this new space investments, more from venture capitalists and private investors.
Great. Thank you very much, Tadeusz, which is also a new perspective on the European funding as well. Thank you very much for joining us for this panel. Thank you very much, Mateusz, Grant, and Tadeusz for participating. Please contact us on Cosmic Hub social media, and we can always tell you and talk about very interesting trends in the space industry, especially in space industry in Poland. So we're really looking forward to seeing you here in CIC in Cosmic Hub again. So thank you very much again to the panelists, and have a nice afternoon.
Thanks for having me. See ya.
Thank you, Jakub, for leading this, and thanks to all. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.